So welcome to the disassembling part of this case or PC. I've removed it from the desk over there and brought it to my workspace, which is, as I said, it is on mono, so remove any risk of static. It's on an anti-static pad as well, or mat, and I've got my anti-static strip as well. As I mentioned in the first video, I was a little bit concerned about the where to put these anti-static strips, purely because the case is fully painted. However, I did some research and found a couple of points where I can put it on this particular case. So as a first part for the strap, I'm going to put it here. So where it says it needs to be lit, so some bare metal here, and then there's also some bare metal over here. So that's where the case's instructions have said where to put the anti-static strap as well. First things first is to remove the side case. Great thing about this particular case is that it does have relatively easy accessibility. No screws required. However, this is a very delicate side case because it is tempered glass, so I need to be fairly careful here. I'm just going to grab this chair, because I just grabbed that from the carpet. I'm just going to ground myself again on the tap over here, pull this over, and just remember just to ground yourself every now and then as well. And I'm going to place this gently down here on this chair. Hopefully it doesn't fall off and smash, because that would be absolutely disastrous. So first things first is I'm just going to take away the GPU, just to get that out of the way. It is actually on a side mounted GPU there too, so there's two parts to it, and then which won't require any tools. And then what I'm going to do first is I'm going to then remove any of the cables, just because that does remove any connection to the motherboard, and gets those cables out of the way as well. I'm then going to take away the all-in-one cooler. As I mentioned, it's diverting slightly from sequence purely because I don't really feel the need to have to take this entire cooler off. That would be the same if I was doing any upgrading as well, because this cooler is adaptable to different types of CPUs. The hard drive itself is, I'm not going to actually take away the hard drive on the back. There's two hard drives there, hard disk drives. I'm going to take out the SSD card, M.2 SSD card, which is in the on the motherboard itself. It's relatively simple to take out the hard drives at the back. Hopefully it doesn't affect the assessment. I'm fairly confident to be able to do that. It's just one, I guess, unnecessary step there, because it's purely, those particular hard drives are completely blank. They have nothing to do with the Windows boot up. They're purely there for extra storage there as well. So first things first is I'm going to unscrew the GPU. Is it that one? Oh. Yeah. So taking apart this, hope you can see, being very careful with this as well. So when you take away the GPU, there is a extra clip here at the back, so you see it push that down. You probably can't see too much in that video, but I'm fairly limited with my videography, if that makes sense. I'm using my phone, it's mounted to the wall. I'm focused more on the build rather than my videoing skills. And unfortunately my wife's not here to help me film it, basically. But hopefully my narration will give you the idea that I am doing the right thing. So slide that out. Keep on not to touch too much of the components. I'm going to slide that into the extremely overkill anti-static pad for the GPU. Yeah. That's extremely overkill for the type of GPU it is, but once I get a larger one, that will be required. Next step now also is I'm just going to take off the GPU side mount cable. For now. Instructions say take away the PCU first as well. So in this case, as I said, it is a fully module PCU. So I can actually nice and easily disconnect these cables. Trying to also remember where they go is very important as well. Because we've got some 6-pin, 4-pin plugs. I do remember where that's going anyway, so that's fine. That's in there. That's awesome. So those are all removed there. Most PCs are not necessarily fully module. You'd be taking apart the entire cables from the motherboard. As I said, this actually has a aftermarket cable management. So I'll just take those off as well. So inside here there's a clip. Yeah. And it is relatively hard to get out. There we go. Cool, so I've taken that one off. Taking that one off. So now the motherboard is disconnected from the power supply. We will also just remove the PCU as well. So to remove that, I need my screwdriver. I'll just adapt it to a different screwdriver head as well. Probably a good idea to use insulated screwdrivers. However, this is not a live connection because I have removed the power supply, but that could just be an extra measure to take. I just didn't have that to do that. So remove this couple of screws here is how I found the easiest way to remove the PCU. 2 screws, and then that just slides out. You've got to be fairly careful with this as well. Obviously you never take apart the PCU, but just bear in mind that this is a live, well not live, but it is where the power's converted for the PCU as well. Really new, as you can see, fully module. So the nice thing about this is that there's no cables running out of it once you unplugged it. And it's also a Gigabyte as well. So it's matching up with the PC as well. So I'm just going to place that on the anti-static mat there. Not too worried about that because it's not a high risk component for static shock. We're going to then just remove this, get out of the way, this GPU card adapter. So that basically allows you to mount the GPU on a forward facing angle, just for aesthetic reasons, potential water cooling in the future as well. Does look a bit better and does work a bit better there too. Next step is to remove the hard drive. So as I mentioned on this one here, is I'm actually going to remove this and SSD card. I'm just seeing which ones I'm going to put this one in. I'll put the SSD card in the smaller one. So with this particular one, it requires a smaller screw head. So I'm just going to take this out. Be very careful not to drop the screw piece onto the motherboard because that would be fairly disastrous. As I said, I'm all static strapped in, so that's nice and safe. I'm also just putting my screws into a wee screw container here as well, so I remember where they are, and making note of which screws go to which component as well, so you're not mucking around with that too. It's a relatively easy process. So just lifting that up, slides out, and wow. So that is basically and just being very careful when touching this as well, because it is a component. So just touching the sides very gently. As you can see, that's the SSD, M2 SSD card. That's what technology's gone to these days. As I said, it does have some hard drives in the back. I could take it apart, but as I said, there's no relevance to it. To be honest, the instructions does say remove the hard drive. This is a hard drive, so I feel that's fair enough. Placing an anti-static pad. One thing I would have done probably better in the future, but I've already started the video, is just maybe get another disc, so where I can put all my rest of my components, although there is enough space. It's probably make it a bit easier there too. Next step is to remove the motherboard. As I said, I'm going to divert from this. So I'm going to remove the all-in-one cooler first, and then I'm going to run out of anti-static pads. GPU, I'll probably put that with a massive GPU. So I'm going to put the RAM in with the GPU anti-static pad, and then put the CPU in this one. So there's a learning lesson, probably not off static pads, but that's okay. For this one here, I think I need a slightly bigger screw. Yes, I do. So when you're removing a cooler, you always remove it opposite ends first, so unscrewing it, so you're not putting too much pressure on it. That's the same when you go backwards as well. So I'm taking this one off first, the bottom left, and then the top right. Unscrew that, just until it unscrews. Relatively simple process as well. Just careful for that not to fall off as well. So again, I'm just going to that's interesting. That's cool. That's done the trick. That one came off, but that one didn't. Interesting. Cool. Left top. Screw that one. And just being careful here because it's just popped off now. So I probably should have loosened this one off a little bit. It doesn't sort of slightly in a different array. I'm just going to push that GPU over a little bit, so that way this cooler is not mounted on the GPU. Cool, that's there. Remove that screw, and then I'm just going to gently remove this. Now, this is plugged in as well, so I'm just going to remove that from the CPU, and I'm going to somehow replace this over here, out of the way. Now I've run into a bit of a problem here because there's not enough cable to pull it out. Here we go. Now I need to be careful here not to let because there's some thermal paste on there. So I need to just place it down. It's not going to sit onto the case itself without breaking it. So obviously this video idea was not the best idea because I can't pause and restart. So that's sitting there nicely though now. I'll just going to keep an eye on it so that the paste doesn't come off there. The next step now is to remove the motherboard and then place into anti-static surface onto an anti-static surface. Oh, that's nice and easy. So the mat itself is an anti-static surface, so that's fine. So what I'll do now is I'll unscrew it and I'll place it onto the anti-static surface, get rid of the, we'll move the case over, and then work with the motherboard itself. So I'm just going to move some of these tools out of the way. That out of the way. Placing that up there. Moving this over. slightly there, and then we're just going to gently slide this over. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just move, that's good, so I don't need to actually put it into a anti-static bag, the motherboard itself. We'll just put it onto the thing so I don't have to worry about the size of that. And that means that I have not run out of anti-static bags. So happy days. So, first thing first is locate all the screws. The other thing also is so important is to make sure that you know exactly where the plugs go. So I'm just double checking. So we've got this one here is the USB 3.0 cable. And we're going to unplug the SSD, the hard drive SATA cables as well. So there's two of those. I'm just going to tuck this out of the way. This is just a GPU power supply. We don't actually need that at the moment because I don't have a power supply that's needed for that. The next one is the front USB as well. So we're going to pull that out. Good thing with this motherboard is it is actually all labelled there too. So apart from the front panel, it's relatively easy to put it back together. I don't know why they haven't come with some sort of common way of making this put together, but it's always a thing you need to remember the sequence. There's a wee speaker here, so it goes there. I'm going to put that down over here. As I said, I've got the motherboard manual just in case I do forget this, but at the front here is the power LED and the what is that? The power switch. And then on the other side we've got the reset switch and the hard drive LED. So we've got a positive negative reset. What I might do, and this is actually a fairly smart idea, I just had some tape here somewhere before. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just pull this off and tape it all together. So that way we remember exactly the sequence that it's in. So I can just basically pull it off in one go. And tape some tape down there to make it relatively easy to put back together. I said relatively, didn't I? Okay. Sometimes you'll learn things as you go, as long as you're not being an idiot with it. And that's the joys of PC building, is that you'll learn things as you go. Wrap that around and pull it off. And now I have my front panel switches in the way that they need to be. So nice and simple there. Next step now, so we're going to take the motherboard off, we're going to get rid of that tape there. So there will be, in this particular motherboard, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 screws. So I'll remove these screws. Remove one. And as I said, I've got a magnetic, I've got a screw case over here. I've got a magnetic device, pokey device, in case I lose any of the screws. But it's just relatively important to make sure that you put the right screws in as well, because you don't want it to be tightening the wrong way, tightening too much, the screws connecting the wrong way, and then have an effect on the motherboard itself, because at the end of the day, the screws are made of metal, or the motherboard's made of partly metal, that's all conductive. So this is the important thing as well. There. This is slightly the boring part of the video. Although I hope the hot tie video hasn't been boring. Where are we? I do feel a lot more safer knowing that I have anti-static protection for both the anti-static match and my strap. One thing I probably would recommend, although I'm fairly young and fit, perhaps do this when you're sitting, just to save your back, or on a raised, more higher table. Just want to mention that. But I'm okay right now, so that's alright. Just going to leave that. Oh yeah, it came out. Yep. Just make sure that piece doesn't drop out as well, because you don't want to be damaging your motherboard as well at the same time. These parts are just so delicate. You just don't know what could damage it and what couldn't damage it. So just, if you've got a screwdriver like this one that is multi-purpose and comes in pieces, just hold it as you bring it up, as to not drop it. And it is actually a magnetic screwdriver as well, so it does make it easier with the screws. I actually don't need that pokey thingy, magnetic pokey thingy, that's what I'm calling it. One more screw. To be honest, I probably didn't need to take apart the motherboard or take it off. Unless I was upgrading the motherboard, I would leave it on this PC. As an extra safety measure. The good thing with this PC is that it's so open that I can change things around anyway. So the only reason why I'm doing it is because the assessment has asked me to remove the motherboard. There is a couple of fan connections that I will just take off as well. So system fan, you're just going to be careful with that as well, not to move it around too much. I should have done that at the start, but that was actually okay, that was fine. So any cables, pull it apart first, so that way you're not moving the motherboard as well. So what we'll do is gently hold the motherboard on the ends, moving any cables out, and just try not to scratch it on the side of the case. And then we're going to place it down on an anti-static surface, which is the anti-static mat here, which is connected in as well. Cool. So next step now is that we're going to remove let's remove the RAM, and we'll put the RAM into the anti-static bag. We've got one here. Probably shouldn't put a screwdriver on that, but that's okay. That's a relatively old GPU. The SSD card's over there. So we're going to put all the RAM pieces into here. Which one will we put in? Okay, we'll do it that one. So when you remove the RAM, and this is DDR4 RAM, there's slide clips on the side. With motherboards, or with RAM, there is a sequence to go as well. So each motherboard is different, so as to which way to put in the RAM. So you could run this PC with just one RAM slot, but you need to make sure that you're putting it in the right slot for it to work correctly without any lag or anything like that. Okay. Pushing down one of the sides. I'm just going to push all the clips first. I know that these are going in all the orange ones here, so relatively simple. These particular RAM cards actually have a heatsink on them as well. So they're the DDR4 8GB RAMs, which are 2.4. I believe, yeah, 2.4. So yeah, fairly nice. I would like to upgrade it to some RGB RAM slots, but that's down the track. We're going to put this into this overkill anti-static bag, but that's okay. So place one in there. Take out the other one. And it's quite a good that it's going in this big case, because big bag, because that way they're not sort of touching each other too much. Not that I think that will do anything, but it's just to add a level of protection, I guess. Hopefully you guys can hear, whoever's watching this can hear me as well. Otherwise I'll need to start again, which I won't mind because I like building PCs. So the fourth slot out. Cool. Awesome. So nice and simple. I know which way it goes, because it's the orange ones that These ones are in, so nice and simple. So next step now is the CPU. Central Processor Unit. This is an i7 6870, I think. 3.4 gigahertz, I believe, from memory. Running on 6 cores. A nice speedy processor for the application for what I want to do. This is the tricky part. Now, for this particular, because as I said, this is a relatively new build, I'm actually not going to, I've decided I'm not going to change the thermal paste on it, purely because it's relatively, probably has a little bit too much on. I'm just going to get my cotton bud and just wipe off a little bit of that on the side there. So I think I've applied too much to this the first time around. So just on the sides, I'm just going to wipe off a little bit of that thermal paste. You gotta be careful not to get this on your hands too, because it's it's just terrible. Oh, it's not terrible. It's a vital thing, but you know, if you've got a black case, you'll get grey all over your case and all over your clothes, and just it's also conductive as well, so it's going to get on parts that it shouldn't get on. So just got some alcohol wipe there. Have I got another cotton wipe here? Just taking some of that off the frame there. So as I said, I'm not going to fully take away the paste, because it's for the amount needed. I do have some if needed, and for this video I would normally wipe it down with cotton bud, alcohol wipe, alcohol solvent, wipe it off very carefully as well, as to not drop any or wipe any of the thermal paste onto the motherboard itself. I would then squeeze in a pea-size amount of thermal paste. You can spread it out if you want to, otherwise the heatsink's going to do its job anyway. Okay. So to remove the CPU, there is a wee clip. I'll just lift this up slightly for the video, so you can see there's thermal paste on there, and there's a clip here that I'm going to push down, and it's going to lift up the casing around the CPU. I'm going to get my anesthetic bag set and ready, because I want to put on the case in this bag as per the instructions without getting rid of too much thermal paste off it. So push that clip down, that releases that, that pulls back. There's another clip there as well. Cool. So there's two clips there, that one, first one, and the second one. Oh, that one goes up. That releases that, and then very, very, very carefully removing the CPU as so, as to not put any paste on anywhere as well, because that's relatively important too, not bending any of the points. The thing with the Intel, because this is a Intel, is that the wee pins are actually on the motherboard itself, whereas if it's an AMD, the pins are on the CPU itself. So that's one distinct difference between the two of them. There's also a little arrow there in the top corner, so that matches up to where you need to put the CPU. So I'm just going to place that into the anti-static bag like so. Maybe it would have been better to take off the thermal paste, but it's okay. I was very careful with that. So that's basically disassembling it. Yeah. that's it. So what we're going to do now, and as I said, there is a hard drive, 2 hard drives in the back, one gig, 2.5 inch hard drive, and a 3.5 inch hard drive as well. I'm not going to take them off because it's a matter of lifting it up. It's probably going to cause more damage to lift all this up and remove it. I wouldn't normally be doing that all at the same time. I'll remove the hard drive that is relevant to Windows, which is that M2 SSD. Cool. So that's it. We're going to pause the video now, and then we'll create a video of booting it back together. So just also another point as well is just make sure that you're always grounded yourself. Every now and then on a tap or something, just make sure your workbench is clear, and that you're not wearing, like I'm wearing bare feet, or rubber soles. You know, don't wear anything that's woolen. Don't walk on the carpet if you can handle it. Yeah, cool.